Hello again, YouTube. This is a video about a hashtag that I've been seeing going around on videos from people that I'm subscribed to. The hashtag is, "What is destroying YouTube?" Now, my honest reaction when I saw people making videos about this subject was, what exactly brought this about? I was just kind of lost. I've been on this site for 9 years, and I've certainly observed the incremental changes, some of them minor, like when people used to talk about the description box, they'd be like, link in the description, or is it this way, or is it this way? And now it's link in the description. They finally settled on where they're going to put the description box. And of course there have been more substantive changes, like forcing everybody to join Google+, or removing YouTube video responses. But as each of those incremental changes was implemented, there was commentary from people about what was going on, the state of the site, and for almost every major change that I can see, there's been commentary by people, and nothing in particular is new. In many ways, I feel that the way things have been on YouTube, at least from my perspective, in the last few years, it have pretty much been a plateau. Things haven't really gotten better or more interesting, and there are many days in which I open my subscription box and I'm disappointed that there's not much interesting to watch. On the other hand, they haven't gotten really all that much worse. There was a period in which many of the people that I was once subscribed to just seemed to drop off the face of the earth seemingly all at once, or at least in a sort of downward curve. And through the magic of Google Analytics, I can empirically see a slow and steady decline of my own channel. But there hasn't been anything too recently that would say, wow, YouTube is just, it's hitting rock bottom. So I'm honestly not sure why this subject is being discussed now. But it's interesting to me for a couple reasons. A few weeks ago, when my nephew was visiting, he asked me about YouTube, and he's like, "Oh, how do you get a channel? You know, how do you get subscribers?" and that sort of thing. And the first thing that came to mind was, well, it was a lot easier once upon a time than it is now. It's harder to get an established channel now than it was then. And this largely has to do with certain subtle structural changes involving the algorithms and the way videos are promoted. Also the fact that as YouTube has gotten more popular, there's just a larger signal-to-noise ratio. More people are making more videos, making it harder to cut through the clutter, and the algorithms and the way of promoting videos has been structured in a way where you basically have to reach a certain level of popularity just to get more popular. That doesn't intuitively make sense, but an analogy I'm going to borrow from somebody else. I'm paraphrasing this from an analogy to something different, and I can't take credit for this, but it's almost like pushing a rock uphill. You push it uphill and you push it uphill, and that's like at the level where you have not that many subscribers and not that many views, and you're slowly building more and more and more, and then at a certain point the algorithms take over and you start getting connected with more popular videos. So your video might show up in the recommended videos of a more popular video, or in the video recommendations of a channel. And this leads to more views, more subscribers, which leads to more views and more subscribers, which leads to more views and more subscribers. And that's the part where you've reached the sort of the top of the hill, and now the rock is rolling downhill, you know, carried by gravity and its own momentum. So many people don't really have the wherewithal to reach that sort of that level. And even I, as seemingly large as some people may perceive my channel to be, haven't reached that point where I've gotten popular enough to really, where I see a takeoff. As I've said, in my own, you know, I can observe my own analytics and see a gradual decline in my channel. And I'm partly to blame for that, because I don't make videos as frequently as I did, say, 5 years ago. And that, in turn, is partly because the community or network of YouTubers that I was once a part of largely no longer exists, and in many ways YouTube is not as engaging as it once was. However, I can still make a video and get interesting and meaningful commentary from my subscribers in the comment section, so it's still worth making videos, at least from my perspective. So from a narrow, selfish perspective, I can say, I don't care, YouTube's fine, it's not being destroyed, I'm still getting a respectable amount of views, I still have a reasonable amount of subscribers, I'm getting meaningful feedback on the content that I make, but I have a kind of privileged position, having arrived at a certain kind of plateau, whereas other people just starting out don't have that advantage. And aside from the fact that I think that there's been a sort of structural change to the way that YouTube operates, it has a certain incentive to promote the content that is going to generate ad revenue and thus make the site money, because for the first several years of the site they were basically hemorrhaging money and you know, losing money hand over fist, as the idiom goes. And to bring it into the black, they have to sort of structure the site in a way that's going to promote the content that's going to bring in the ad revenue and thus make them money. I understand that, but there's another level at which, as YouTube has evolved, there are patterns of how to become popular that you either exploit and you play that game, or you largely ignore to your own peril. And so I think it can be frustrating for people who don't necessarily want to play that game or know how to play that game to attempt to make YouTube videos, stumble into it, and fail, and then give up. It is simply harder to get established, not simply because of what I just discussed about the you know, multiplying popularity effect and the structural changes, but because just the nature of being a video blogger has changed. In order to have an audience on YouTube, you do have to have something of a focus and something of a niche for the most part, unless you just have an amazing amount of charisma. So what you'll see with most people is a kind of pattern in which they'll focus on doing movie reviews, or they'll focus on doing video games, or they'll focus on doing, you know, vegan cupcake recipes, or they'll focus on talking about subject X, Y, or Z, and their success in certain ways is dependent on the popularity of whatever the niche that they're tuned into. And many of the most popular YouTubers are focused on things that are very broad and very much pop culture. So one of the most, you know, subscribed to and famous YouTubers, Ray William Johnson, makes videos about other popular videos. It's just this sort of it's, you know, it's like the snake eating its tail of popularity. It's this self-consuming popular culture. So if you're focused on some niche area and you mainly make videos on something like atheism, when that's a hot topic and Richard Dawkins is on television and having debates with people, and Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens are all out there making television appearances and conference appearances, having public debates, and publishing, you know, best-selling books. It's a hot topic, it generates a lot of interest, and it can, at the level of the YouTube video blogger, it can sustain an audience of people who are using that as their niche for making videos. And when it starts to wane culturally in popularity, you see the dying off of the people who were relying on that as subject matter for their YouTube videos. And so pop culture is something that is perennial. There's always some new popular song, popular movie, hit TV show, controversy, whatever for people to talk about. And that's why so many people make very topical videos. Creating original content that is not connected to some other, you know, aspect of culture that is already popular and talked about and of interest to other people if you're creating something unique and not already within the cultural mainstream, getting it noticed is difficult. If you're making videos and you're just sort of going off in a new direction with every video that you make, certain people might be attracted to your personality and your style of delivery, and you might gain a certain following, but overall, people are only going to be, you know, there's a certain portion of the audience whose attention is only going to be held if you're talking about something that interests them personally. In other words, to gain an audience, you have to cater to an audience, and this is in part why other media like television, movies, books have genres. This is a science fiction book, this is a horror movie. And so quite apart from all of these structural changes, YouTube is no longer the kind of free-form site that it was in the early days, where there was much more experimentation. Even without all of these changes that YouTube has implemented, there is just a change in the way that people approach making videos, and the site has by and large turned over to people who are either experts at something or highly interested in some sort of niche or specific subject, or people with a lot of charisma who want to talk about highly topical current events and popular culture. And that's just not for everybody. That doesn't, some people lack the interest or the knowledge necessary to fill that role, or to do it any better than anybody else. If you want to make videos about vegan cupcakes, then you're going to have to make your videos better and more interesting than the 10,000 other people making videos about vegan cupcake recipes. And that in and of itself becomes a barrier to entry for many people. That there are settled conventions and niches, and you can either break in to that way or you can't, and that each niche and subject has its own sort of natural upper limit in popularity depending on how popular the subject is. Honestly, as discouraged as I am sometimes by the state of YouTube and how boring and uninspiring it can be at certain moments, I haven't given up, and I don't really think that anything in particular is destroying it. The reality is that times have changed, and you either adapt to the new times or you don't. There's not much that you can really do to change it because it's a large-scale phenomenon which the individual doesn't exert much influence over. To wrap things up, in the near future I'm going to be doing reviews of 2 documentaries that are relevant to what I've been talking about in this video. One is called Generation Like. I just rewatched that documentary last night and took notes on it, so that'll probably be the first one that I release. And the other one is called Please Subscribe. Generation Like is about social media and marketing and YouTube popularity, and Please Subscribe, as you might infer from the title, it profiles several popular YouTube users and what it's like to be a sort of YouTube celebrity. And I'll talk about this subject and the whole YouTube popularity, the new game of being a YouTube personality and all that other happy horse crap in upcoming videos when I talk about those. Have a nice whatever time it is. Goodbye.